Hey, good evening, everybody. It's Jason with Kentucky Sustainable Living. I've got Shelly with Two Old Crows Homestead and
Hey,
Jeff Smith, the Everyday Prepper. I appreciate everybody being here tonight. We'll start off. Jeff, kind of give us a backstory on who is Jeff and what got you into being the Everyday Prepper.
Well, it's Jason. I started out many years ago. Started out back in the mid '80s while I was in the Air Force. I helped some survivalists train. They had a compound in Pennsylvania, and they wanted somebody to help them figure out how they were going to defend it if the need ever came up. And that's what got me into it. And while I was in the military, you obviously see the need to be prepared for anything that comes along. And after I get retired and get into the family life, I realized then that I really had to do something because you never know what's going to happen. It may be as simple as a snowstorm coming in, and I like nothing better than seeing everybody else rush into the store when the snowstorm's coming in, and
Yeah,
we just sit at home and smile and enjoy ourselves because we make sure we have what we need. And then I got into the everyday prepper here about 3 or 4 years ago, just because I saw some areas that I thought other people were missing out on. And I want to make sure people get everything that they need, get the knowledge they need. So I tried to fill in the gaps a little bit. And that's what brought me here to where I am now.
good deal. And yeah, that's the thing. That's what I like. I do the snowstorms and everything. Everybody in Kentucky gets, well, they get Shelly bread and milk and eggs.
Toilet
yeah,
paper.
you got to have French toast when the
Yeah,
snowstorm comes. Yeah.
yeah, and it's like everybody's like rushing to get that. And really, the only thing before a snowstorm I run to the hardware store and get a little bit more non-ethanol fuel. Is what I
Hmm.
grab. Just they're half a mile down the road, and I grab some of that. So, but yeah, that's the way to go. We got a few people coming in. We'll pick that up there. But Jeff, tell us kind of some of the stuff you've done as far as getting into the preparedness and stuff like that, and a little bit about Everyday Prepper.
Well, we got get into the basics. Food. Make sure you've got enough water on hand. Always have an emergency supply of water, even if you have an alternate source. Make sure you've got medical supplies that you need. Know how to use them. And you really got to get. Everybody thinks, I got to have guns and ammo. It's Have you ever tried to eat a plate full of 223 ammo? I mean, it's just not going to cut it. So you've got to make sure that you have everything, and you have to kind of dissect your lifestyle and see what you use on a normal basis, see what you can live without, and then figure out what the basics are that you really need. And I recommend to people to get started out slow. Most people don't have $50,000 to go out and get everything you need. Not that you're going to end up spending that much, but you easily could. Start out small. Do what my mom and a bunch of ladies in the past used to do. Every time they go to the store and get something, there's always a section that they put off to the side that went down in the basement or went in the cupboard. So back before fast food restaurants, everybody always had a supply of extra stuff. And I heard a guy mentioning that he thought he was blaming everything on Ray Kroc, who started on McDonald's, because he said once the fast food restaurants came around, people sort of quit storing that stuff away, because if they ran short, hey, we'll just go out and we'll grab some Mickey D's and we'll be good to go. So people need to get back into the mindset of making sure that you've got some extra put away, and just build on that. And eventually, you're going to end up being in pretty good shape if you keep it up.
Yeah, exactly. And couple of things I want to point out is the water supply. Yeah, if you've got a well on your property, and that's your if you've got city water and then you've got a well as a backup, you still need to have a lot of stored water. Just because, what if your well pump goes out and you've got to do something to repair it,
Hmm.
and it's going to take you 2 or 3 days to repair it? If you've got the repair parts, it could take a couple days to get that thing fixed. What are you going to do in between that? So that
Exactly. And I would probably recommend that you have a couple different sources. Have a way to collect some rainwater. That's good to use in your toilets. Uh, and if you filter it, you're going to be able to drink it. So make sure you've got a couple different ways to keep yourself supplied.
Yeah, that, and then a lot of the stuff. Let me see what we are in South Central Kentucky. Yeah, and then building slow. A lot of people get frustrated on it, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, I've got to have a year's supply of food," and they kind of freak out about everything. It's like I can't afford a year's supply of food. I tell and preach a lot of people start off slow with it. Start with a week. Figure not going to the grocery for a week, and then after you've got a week, start with a month. And then after you've got a month, you've got it kind of figured out after you built a month's supply. Then we can go to 3 months. Then we can step up to 6 months, and then step up to a year. And the way food prices are now, a lot of people can't afford to just, run out there and buy a year's supply of food, or they don't have the space for a year's supply of food.
Yeah, and that's, most people I think are just doing fantastic if they've got a month's worth.
Yeah.
Folks that can do 3 months, that's even better. When I was brought up, we usually had enough extra on hand that we were going to be able to make it 3 months, with no trouble. And people, like I say, people have gotten away from that, and they need to get back into it.
Yeah, and a lot of people get confused on it. They're like, "How do I start my food storage stuff?" And one of the easiest examples I put out there is spaghetti. Say you and your family eat spaghetti 1 time a week. So it's simple math. If you're going to do a pound of spaghetti, if you're going to do a pound of noodles, a jar of sauce, and a pound of ground beef or sausage, multiply it by 52. So for a year, if you're going to eat that for 1 week, you need 52 pounds of pasta, 52 jars of sauce, and 52 pounds of ground beef or sausage. And it's that simple.
Yeah, and that's, I've got a ton of pasta stored up. Not literally a ton. I think right now we're at about 200 pounds. Store is easy. It can be very compact. And there's all kinds of things you can do with it. Of course, we'll be using a lot of spaghetti sauce because we had about 550 pounds of tomatoes come out of the garden this year. And my wife she's been making spaghetti sauce, pizza sauce. She's made, oh my gosh, salsa, you name it. And I think she's still got some tomatoes in the freezer she needs to do something with.
Yeah, and that's the big thing. A lot of people get scared about the food supplies and stuff like that, and it's not really rocket science on how to build that up. Just figure out what you're going to eat every week, and then just start doing the math on it. So,
and people really need to take a long, hard look at what they do because we live in an age where we live, we're 50 miles outside of Columbus, Ohio, so people here are more rural. Folks that I've worked with in Columbus, they went to the store every day on their way home to get what they're going to cook for dinner.
Yeah.
And
there's people that I meet that say that, and they'll say, "Well, I don't know what I'm in the mood for. I don't know what I want to eat. So I just go shopping that day." And I'm like, I could not even function if I didn't have, I can't even imagine. I don't consider myself to be an anxious person, but if I didn't have food in my house, it would make me crazy. I don't know. It would just make me crazy.
And I worked with a gentleman years ago, and I may have shared this story last year, but educated man, he and his wife, both very well educated. One time we were working on a holiday, and she would always bring him lunch in middle of the shift. She showed up. She said, "Nothing is open. Everything is closed. So what are we going to do?" And I said, "Don't you guys have some stuff put away in your kitchen?" "No." I said, what do you have in your kitchen?" "Well, we might have a little bit of water." I said, "What are your cupboards empty?" "Oh no, we keep our computer games in there."
Wow.
Lights go out, we won't be seeing them.
Oh yeah, exactly. Now, like my mom, and I'll tell this, but my parents, we had food stores. We didn't live every day. She didn't stop at the grocery store every day, but there was a little country store that where we lived, and the guy was a butcher by trade, and he would bring in carcasses. He would have stuff in his cooler, and he would cut beef and pork and everything else. And she would stop in there. She would decide on her drive. It was like a 20-minute drive. She would decide what kind of meat we were going to have there. And if it was something they didn't have, of course, we had stuff in the freezer. But it was pretty cool. You could go in there and get fresh cut beef or fresh cut pork that the guy was a butcher and actually did it.
Oh, that's nice. You can't hardly beat that unless you got your own.
Yeah. So, well, Jeff, tell us some more. You're gonna be at our festival. You're gonna be giving us a talk. Give us a brief rundown of what you're gonna talk about. Kind of give us the semi-long cliff notes, if you would.
Okay, we're going to be talking about preparedness 101 or prepping 101. And this is mainly for people that are new to prepping or preparedness. And I think there's some things in there. This is not just stuff I came up with. This is stuff that I've heard. We've been going to events like this for 12 years now, something like that. And listen to a lot of people, and I've got a lot of ideas in here. I've got friends who are in emergency management, so I'm getting information from them. I'm drawing on my time in the military, drawing on my time outdoors. So we put all this together and take a look at everything, starting off at the beginning and heading right on to however long that you think you're going to need to be able to survive for on your own. And people miss out on so many things, little things, especially if, you got to consider, are you on well? Are you on city water? If you're on city water, that could run out real quick. Are you on septic or are you on public sewer? Because you're going to have to figure out a way to deal with your waste, especially, if you're on the septic, you're good to go. You haul some water in, flush the toilets. You can even use the facilities inside. If you're on public utilities, man, you're gonna end up, everything's gonna back up pretty quick when the sewage plants quit working. You lose power. You're gonna end up, that's gonna back up. You're gonna need a way to not only have an alternate way to go to the bathroom, you're gonna have to be able to store it someplace where you're not going to be causing a disease issue for you or your loved ones, and someplace where you're gonna have to have the way to do it where you're not going to be overcome by the smell. Water, we already talked about water, the things you have to do there. All the little stuff. Medications. Does anybody in your family rely on medication? Just so you're going to have a supply build up, so you're going to be able to keep them supplied, keep them going. There's so many things, and people, and I've used this at the company I work for. I always give a little talk during September for National Preparedness Month. FEMA, with all their shortcomings, they've got some information there that is really, really good. And they try to get it out to people. Most of the time, people don't pay any attention at all. And it's really a shame because, when you're getting hit with this information coming at you from different angles, you think sooner or later folks would listen. But we'll go through that. We'll start at the basics. We'll go through to the end. I'll answer a lot of questions, and anybody can stop by my booth, and I'm always willing to talk and continue what we talked about in the class. So we'll try to get you from A to B. I'll try to keep it interesting, and hopefully we'll have some good participation, some good interaction. I've never done one of these Preparedness 101 classes where I haven't ended up learning something from people in the audience. So that's one of the things that's really great about it for me. You get all that information combined, and man, you just can't beat that as a way to learn.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and I always learn something, even as long as I've been doing this, I always learn something from other people. And it might be something small that you just overlooked. And it's like, man, how did I overlook that thing when it could be such a big thing in the end? You're just not really thinking about. I think a lot of people get blinders on and they're just set on that one individual thing, and they don't see a major flaw in their design on a lot of stuff.
Yeah, and you have to be prepared for such a broad spectrum of possibilities right now, because you look at everything we're facing in the world. Saw on the news today, we're accusing Russia of putting nuclear weapons in space. So
Yeah.
You already have Iran and North Korea have said if they get a chance to do an EMP attack, high altitude EMP attack on us, they will. So there's that threat. You look at what the farmers are going through over in Europe because they're trying to cut down the food they produce. Same thing's going on in Canada with their carbon tax on the farmers up there. there's a possibility if that hits here, we're going to have a slowdown in the supply chain for our food. So you have to be prepared for that too. Civil unrest is another one. You never know when something's going to flare up, and that could end up impacting the supply chain as well. There are just so many things that you got to be aware of and be ready for that it's really kind of mind-boggling. It's overwhelming if you sit down and think about it too much. But take it a step at a time and use some common sense, and everybody will be okay.
Oh yeah, and the supply chain stuff too. Like I was at Sam's the other day, and Sam's is where I get the dog food.
Mm-hmm.
They did not have the dog food I got, and I asked the boy, I'm like, "Hey, did y'all just quit carrying this or what?" And he goes, "No, it's supply chain." And I was like, "Still, you got a supply chain deal with this?" And I made a mental note and looked, and I'm like, they've got half as much dog and cat food as they usually do.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and I wonder sometimes too, is that really supply chain, or are they just trying to control what comes out so they can keep the prices up? Not that the good old Sam's would ever do anything like that, but
yeah.
I'm at the point now. I'm kind of leery anytime I hear those stories anymore.
Oh yeah, and it probably is. They're probably trying to control a little bit of it and stuff like that. You never really know what they're planning.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's years ago, post Sandy. Go ahead, Shelley.
Go ahead. I have a question. Go ahead with your thought.
I was just going to say, years ago, after Sandy Hook, when the ammo supply dried up, I had friends that worked at a major company's ammunition plant, and I asked them, I said, "Where's all the ammo?" Because I hadn't seen their brand of ammo up here, and they're down in Arkansas. So I hadn't seen their brand of ammo up here in a long, long time. And they said, "We're producing more than we ever have. We don't know where it's going."
All the IRS agents.
It was 3 or 4 years before I saw their brand of ammo back up in the store shelves here.
Really?
Yeah, when they hire 80,000 of them, they got to equip them, right?
Yeah.
With your talk, are you going to be talking about what people can expect from people?
Oh yeah, that's a big part of it. Because a lot of people, some people, if they're prior military or if they've had any kind of EMS or law enforcement background, fire department, they kind of know what people can be like at their worst. But a lot of people have no idea what people are going to be capable of, and they have to prepare mentally for that. Mental is a big aspect of it, not only for preparing what you're going to deal with other people, but how you're going to control yourself, how the family's going to interact, or if you bring anybody else in, that's another consideration. Who might you let in, and are they a good fit? And not to be cold or anything, but if time like that, and I know that we've prepared to take care of our family, somebody else wants to come in, what are they bringing to the party? Better be something good. I'm sorry if you're not bringing anything that's value to us or useful to us. See you on down the road.
Oh yeah, and I had a conversation with about 4 grown men about that topic and everything, and essentially I laid it out with them, and not saying too much, but I was like, if you plan on coming here, this is what you need. And I laid it out to them flat out, and I was like, here's your piece of paper. If you're going to show up, don't bring less than this. And they looked at me, and before that, they were all about coming to my place, being here when and if it goes down. And after I gave them the hard deal of this is what you need to bring, and I went over all the details. I'm like, you can store. I've got room that you can store all this stuff here. You will have access to it whenever you want to. I was like, but don't show up at 3:00 in the morning wanting a can of beans.
Yeah.
None of them took me up on it because it was like, oh, this is actually like work.
Yeah,
they wanted you to supply their stuff.
Yeah,
a lot of people want to take the easy road, and and along those same lines, you got to if you got somebody other than your family, you got to do an inventory of talents and skills. What are they good for? Basically, what talents do they bring in? What kind of jobs are they going to be able to do? And, you're liable to have family members when you do the skills inventory on them, their labor, and that's it. And a lot of people don't like hearing that. But if you're not going to be able to provide any security, if you're not going to be able to do anything medical wise, cook, prepare food, anything else, you're going to be digging ditches or cutting firewood or whatever you needed to do. So that's hard pill to swallow for some folks.
Exactly. Oh yeah, and it's bad to say, but you really do inventory people on skills and what they can bring to the table. I mean, if I had a doctor show up here, like an ER doctor show up here with very little stuff, I'm going to take him in real quick for sure, just because of that skill that he's got and possesses.
Mm-hmm.
Or a good vet.
Yep. Well, and I don't know how many doctors we have listening. I'll make folks mad. I'd probably trade 2 or 3 doctors for a good nurse.
Yeah.
Of course,
Right.
I gotta say that's what my wife does, and then we've got a couple more nurses in the family. But we're pretty well medically wise. We in between my wife and I and the kids, we've got 3 nurses, a scrub tech, an imaging specialist who also knows all kinds of things about cardiac. So it's just nice to have that kind of a solid talent base there.
Yeah. And it's like Forrest says regarding prepping, people will talk about it, but won't be about it. That's
yeah.
He hit the nail on the head right there.
Unless it's about the guns and ammo part. Everybody wants to do that.
Oh yeah, everybody because that's sexy stuff. Everybody wants, oh, look at my new Gucci gun, and I bought this X, Y, and Z ammo that I can do this with, and it's like, okay, how much food did you buy today?
Yeah. So, well, and I know some people that I thought were pretty decent folks, and talk to them about prepping, and they say, well, I've got enough guns and ammunition. I think I can get whatever I want.
Yeah.
I said, okay, see how long that works for you, Peanut.
Oh yeah, and I've posted before guns and ammo and stuff, and man, it gets all kinds of looks and likes and everything else, and then you post a big grocery haul, and it's crickets.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, put some medical supplies on there, see what you get.
Yeah. Join your local volunteer fire department, access to equipment and supplies. Yeah. I mean, that would be a good thing, knowing your volunteer firemen, stuff like that. And that part of it goes along too with that comment, the whole lone wolf thing is not going to fare very well for a lot of people.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, you can't be awake 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
So you're not going to last long unless you have a place where you can hide that you're relatively sure that nobody's ever going to find you. Lone wolf is tough, and that's why you see. I'll talk too about the benefit of being involved in mutual assistance groups, because if you've got the people who want to get together and want to do their fair share, get a mutual assistance group so you can support each other. You can support each other when it comes to knowledge, when it comes to getting some of the work done, help each other out. And if anything ever does happen, it helps if you're close enough that you're going to be able to support each other that way too.
Well, and even with homesteading, you can't do everything. You can't have all of the stuff, you can't grow all of the food, or you're going to be better off if you've got like this guy over here that raises cows and you raise pigs, and, you trade eggs, or somebody makes soap, or, whatever it is, you can have that. You're not relying on yourself to provide everything if you have a group that you can barter with and trade with. So, yeah.
And that's, you just said another word, one of my favorite words, bartering. People gotten to the point they don't even deal when they go to buy a car now. The guy says, hey, I can get you your payments down under $500 a month, and boom, they buy the car. Don't even talk about it. Bartering is going to be an essential part of survival, and people just do not have the bartering skills anymore. That's one reason. I know I talked about this last year. I have a lot of old tools that I sell, and I also try to teach people about them. But I'll have stuff that I don't really need. It's not stuff I'm going to sell. I always have the make an offer box there. And, people say, they'll always come up and say, well, how much do you want for that? It's make me an offer. Well, I don't know what to offer you. What do you want for it? I said, well, just think about it. Make me an offer. And it really takes work sometimes to get people to get the enough gumption to make you an offer. And kids are the most fun. I've had some kids that are just wheelers and dealers. They got into it. We had a good time. I had one young man that came in, he bought a bunch of stuff from me already. He came back and he had 3 or 4 tools. And he said, what are you going to take for these? I said, you know how it works? He said, well, I'll give you $10 for all of them. I said, okay, that's a pretty good offer. Said, I tell you what, why don't you go ahead and we'd gone back and forth a little bit to get down to the final price. But I said, I'll tell you what, I'll sell them to you for half that if you show me what you're going to make with them this next year. And I'll be darned if at Old School Survival Boot Camp this last year, his mom stopped by and said, and I was teaching 3 classes a day there, so it wasn't in my booth a whole lot. But his mom stopped by and caught me. He said, my son's been looking for you because he's got stuff to show you.
That's
You know, and
awesome.
how cool is that?
Oh
But
yeah.
if we could get the adults doing that, it'd be really great.
Right.
Oh yeah, and it is, bartering is kind of a lost art. I've had people before, grown men and women that don't know how to barter with stuff, and any kind of deal on it. And my wife despises to go somewhere with me when we're going to buy something. So
Mhm.
I've had her walk out of the store before, and heck, when H Gregg was still open, I needed a TV for the house, and I walked in there knowing how much I wanted to spend on a TV. And she ended up just freaking leaving. She was like, I was embarrassed because you were just, haggling these people down on it. I was like, but I got the TV for the price I wanted. So,
That's
Yeah, and
funny.
that's all that matters. And people don't realize, nobody's going to have everything that you need. There's always going to be somebody that's going to have something you need, and you're going to have to be able to talk to them about it. One thing that I've been meaning to do, haven't done yet. We've got a couple different farms that we buy stuff from, and they're the kind of farms where you're sort of become a member, and then you can go buy stuff, and you can, whether it's whole milk, whatever. And I want to talk to some of these folks and say, okay, if things ever got really bad, what would you need that you don't have? What are folks like that who have stuff, who are still going to have a supply of that stuff? What do I need to have on hand to barter with them? Because it's not going to be food; they're set.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I recommend, if anybody has a situation like that, talk to them about it in advance. If something ever happened, what do I need to have so we can still do business?
Oh yeah. And that's another thing. Go back, you're talking about the farms around you. I've made a list and everything of the people around me, and went up and down the street who's going to be useful for what, and stuff like that. And it's bad to do, but I mean it's something you've got to do. This person is this person is that, and it's a hard reality to look at. And I mean I know everybody that lives real close to me and know their assets and stuff like that.
Yeah, and
Well,
that's
you need to know who is potentially going to be a problem, and you need to know that before they become a problem. You need to understand. You need to get out and meet your neighbors, and that's one of the things. One of the first times that I went to Self-Reliance Festival, Nicole Sauce, that's one of the things she said. There was a bunch of people there, and they were like, how do we build community? How do we do that? And they're like, I'm from Oklahoma or whatever. And she would say, do you know your neighbor? And if they said no, and then she would say, then you have no interest in building community.
Mhm.
If you don't even go out and know the people who are living around you, at the very least, you should know the people living around you to know if they're going to be a problem before they're a problem. I mean, you can tell when you go meet somebody if there's going to be issues. I mean, people are usually pretty authentic.
Oh yeah. Well, and that's, I'm
Or if
fortunate
not,
here.
they're pretty quickly. Yeah.
We got some folks that live not too far down the road, and I used to work with them, so I kind of have an idea what they're about, and I would definitely be watching them if anything ever happens. So, people need to sort of think about that and sort of take stock of what they know about their neighbors and in their area, and be ready for it. Another thing, if you have anything that's obviously some kind of value, or would be when we get into an emergency situation, like with us, we have family that pretty much surrounds my in-laws farm. They have cattle there. So we are probably about the fifth closest farm with cattle on them to the little town we live outside of. We're about 4 miles out. When those people in that town can't get food at the Family Dollar anymore, they're going to start moving out looking for stuff. And hopefully, if you think about that in advance and you're ready to negotiate and barter, if you have people that don't know what they're doing, they're liable to come out here and just start killing. If you talk to them, say, okay, we could probably supply you with this much beef, but you got to leave the breeding stock here.
Yeah.
If you do that, you're not going to have anything next year. You're going to eat well now. You're going to starve next year.
Yeah.
Try to talk some sense to folks who don't really know what they're getting into.
For sure. Oh, Shelly, you want to talk about the Festivus?
Sure.
That's what we're calling it now is the Festivus.
So our festival is the Kentucky Sustainable Living Homesteading and Preparedness Festival. It's going to be March 23rd and 24th in Bowling Green, Kentucky at the WKU Ag Expo Center. The day before, on that Friday before, there are a couple workshops that we're doing. One is homestead medicine, and the other one is a amateur ham radio class. You can go to the website, which is KentuckySustainableLiving.com, and check all of that stuff out there. Jeff was actually one of our speakers last year. He did 2 different talks for us. One was how to get home in an emergency situation, and the other one was tools. He talked about, actually, it was really super interesting. That was the one that I got to listen to. I didn't get to hear the other one. But I mean, he's going to be talking about Preparedness 101, but he's going to have a booth there, and he is a wealth of information. So pretty much anything you have questions about, he'll be available to talk to you about those things, and can help you out with whatever you need. What else, Jason? You want to talk about the dinner on Saturday?
Yes, we've got a charity dinner for Vets for Child Rescue. We'll probably get cut off now that I said it. But Saturday night, we got the dinner for Vets for Child Rescue. That's on Saturday night. Tickets are on the website. You'll get to sit down. Jeff will be there. All our other speakers and demonstrators will be there. You'll get to have dinner with them, bid on some cool auction items, and raise money for an awesome cause. And like I said, you can get tickets on the website.
And I'd like to say that, having had the opportunity to be there last year, what a great event, great people. And you folks have even, I saw a couple of things that you did and the way you ran the show. So I put that on my list of best practices on down the road. When I get to do a show, there's a couple of things you did that I want to do. But I mean, great event. And that charity dinner that you guys had, the banquet and the auction, that was fantastic. I think everybody had a good time. Some very generous people there. I know raised a good bit of money. I think that was just outstanding.
It was. That was probably the best part of the weekend, honestly. Oh.
This year, we're actually looking forward to having, what is Forrest's last name?
Seeley.
Yeah, Forrest Seeley, who is the admin guy for Vets for Child Rescue. He's going to be at the festival this year. So he's going to be able to give you, everybody, a lot of information about the organization and, talk more intelligently than Jason and I can about all of their stuff. But we're really excited about him being there.
For sure. I'm glad he's coming. And I think one of the people that work with him is going to come too. Yeah. She actually is somewhere around Nashville. So I think he's going to hijack her and bring her up too. So we hadn't burned much time. Jeff, tell us some good prepping stories. Stupid stuff you've seen people make mistakes on.
I
love good stories.
People just never cease to amaze me with some of the stuff they come up with. They go out and buy the gadgets, and you ask them if they ever tried the gadget out. And I saw a post earlier today on a prepping type page, and the woman had found this wonderful battery recharger and all these rechargeable batteries, and she thought that was great, and that's going to help her out. And I run in deals like that, and yeah, sure, there's some quality products out there around, but there's a lot of stuff that's just pure junk. And I ask folks, have you ever tried that? I don't know, but if anything ever happens, I will. Yeah, it's not a good way to go, because if anything does ever happen, and then you find out that you got junk and you don't have any way to power your flashlights or anything else, is people just they go for the shiny objects, they go for the cool stuff, and they get them, and then they find out, sometimes hopefully they're finding out before they really need it, but they're finding out that they got stuff that just isn't going to cut it.
Oh yeah, the Homestead twins made it in. They're one of our sponsors for everything.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, go and show those guys some love. So, yeah, and
that's one of the things that Chuck Peoples talks about with medical stuff. People will go out and buy medical equipment and then they never open it, like a tourniquet or whatever. And he said, and then when you have an emergency happens, you don't even know how to, take this thing apart or use it or, whatever you need it for. When he did our medical class, what was that thing called that we put on Chase's leg? Is that
it was a traction
or something. Yeah, traction
splint for your femur, I think.
And it hadn't even, like, Chuck had ordered it from Amazon or something, and he had never even opened it. He got it for this class. And so he's telling us that, Chase has a broken leg and this is what we have to do. And he just threw this thing at us. It was in a package and we were like, what do we do with this? And he goes, I don't know, figure it out. And but that's the thing. People buy these cool things like what you're talking about, and they never even take it out and try to mess with it. And they're just like, oh, well, when I need it, I'll do something with it. And what good is it?
When it comes to the medical supplies, you'll see people go out there and they think they're getting good stuff, but they really don't think about it. Because you'll see stuff out there that if you're ever in a bad way and you're the one that needs to use that person's not going to make it, because there is no advanced medical facilities that are going to be able to help you. So be realistic on that stuff. And that's, people ask me when I talk about getting home in an emergency, so why don't you have more medical supplies? Okay, if you're on the trek home and you get shot, if it's anything other than a flesh wound, if you get anything in the abdomen, you're done.
Yeah.
You're not going to make it. And that's the same thing. I've had issues before talking to people about having enough medications on hand. And there's some folks that come to the realization, if anything ever does happen, if they got a good supply, they're going to be good for a couple of weeks. And that's a hard thing to face. It's a hard thing to have to tell people, but I think it's something that people need to know, need to be aware of.
Oh yeah. And that as far as going back and buying gadgets and stuff and just putting them up, I'm guilty to a certain point. I've got multiples of things, but I go ahead and open the thing up, test it out, make sure it's going to function, but then I can put it back in the package and set it on the shelf. And hey, I've got a couple extra back there, and then I've got the one that I'm going to use. Like flashlights is one of the big things. I open all the flashlights, test them out, make sure they work, and then put them back in the box and store them away without the batteries in them and that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know how many people have generators that have never taken them out of the box, never put the oil in it, anything like that. And hell, you never know. That thing might not even crank. It might have, you go to put the oil in it, the oil might just spill out in the bottom, and then you're like, oh crap, I don't even have any extra oil for this. If you could even get the thing fixed, or you go to pour the gas in it and it leaks gas everywhere. So,
and I've known multiple people who go out and buy a generator and take it home. They think that bottle of oil that came with it's a spare, and they'll go out there and start that generator up.
And it runs about a minute.
And it's sad,
Wow.
but that's one thing you have to look at. And my wife 10, 12 years ago, she was just she was a nice, sweet, innocent medical worker who was going to save everybody. That's her train of thought. And now we'll be out doing something and we'll see somebody doing something ignorant, and she'll just look at me. They ain't going to make it. So you're right, babe. Ain't going to have to worry about them knocking on the door.
St. Hunter, you need to come to Chuck's medical workshop and get some good medical training from him. So that would be something that would be well worth everybody on here coming to for sure.
And that's so important. It's one of the things that people overlook the most. They think that, they're going to a couple Band-Aids, they're going to be good to go. There's a lot of things, a lot of injuries that if you're properly equipped and you have the knowledge, you can mitigate that in emergency situations. But if you don't have the supplies, you don't have the knowledge, you're going to lose somebody for something relatively simple. And like was just, I saw one message come up there on the screen, a cut finger. That's why I tell people, manly guys in the emergency, getting home in emergency class, I don't need no leather gloves. I don't need no sunglasses. Personal protective equipment's very important because you don't want to get taken out of the game over a silly injury that you could have prevented by wearing the proper equipment.
Yeah.
And folks just don't think about it.
Oh yeah. I wear and I don't have a set right here, but the Milwaukee cut resistant gloves, the level 1 cut resistant gloves. If I'm doing anything that I don't need super dexterity in my hands, I wear those almost all the time. I mean, when we're doing demo on jobs, stuff like that, and it has saved me so many times from getting my fingers cut open, scratch, anything like that. So that, and plus it keeps them. I wish Milwaukee would change it where you could use your phone with it. You can't use your phone with those.
So, can't you use your phone?
No, I gotta take the stupid things off and then use my phone. So
I know, and that's a hassle, but I've become pretty good. I can be out mowing the lawn or something, or out working outside and have gloves on, and my phone will ring and I can hit it with my nose. And actually, you got to improvise, adapt, and overcome.
That's great. Never thought about using my nose.
Well,
I've been reading a prepper series, I guess is what it's called, or apocalyptic fiction. And one of the things, I'm like totally hooked on this series that I'm reading. And one of the things that sticks out to me is, I mean, of course, you've got the guy who's the prepper and has all the stuff, and, they create this whole group that they're running around with and all that. But one of the things that sticks out to me is, by and large, the general population of people in the story are just sitting around waiting for somebody to come take care of them. And I know it's a fictional story, but I have talked to enough people out in the world that, yeah, there's a lot of people that think that somebody's going to come take care of them. And that's, I don't know. It just blows my mind that anybody thinks that should happen anyway. I mean, I just wasn't raised that way. I mean, I won't say that I wasn't raised like in a prepper home or something like that. But I also wasn't raised that somebody else is supposed to like provide my food and all of that kind of stuff, that I'm supposed to do all of that. But it's just, I don't know. That's the thing that I think about with, if everything goes south, it's like, there's just so many people out there that have no idea what to do. I mean, even if they came and stole my chicken, they wouldn't know what to do with my chicken once they stole it. You know what I'm saying?
They're looking for a striped bucket.
Yeah. Yep. That's the only way they're going to know how to fix that chicken, isn't it? If it comes from the kernels.
Yeah.
But, it's really a shame. And we've run into situations, and I've heard of situations where people who grow excess stuff in their garden will take it to a food bank, and the food bank's told them, we don't really want that because the people who come here don't know how to fix the stuff. So they don't want it.
Yeah. Well, that, and you look, going back to what Shelley said, people just waiting on somebody to do something. Almost all these snowstorms that we have, the big snowstorms and stuff, people actually die inside their freaking house. And I'm not talking about grandma that's stuck in a wheelchair with dementia. I'm talking about an able-bodied person like me. They die in their house because they don't know what to do, or they're just waiting on the fire department or EMS or the police to come take them to a warming shelter or something. It's like that, or they just curl up in a ball and they're like, well, the house is cold and I don't have any food, I'm going to die. And it's like, I just don't understand that.
It's you've got FEMA and Department of Homeland Security, and not that I'm a big proponent for either one there, but they try in some things, and they do try to get the message out that we're not going to be there in an hour if something happens. You have to be able to take care of yourself. For National Preparedness Month a few years ago, they were really pushing every home having a 72-hour kit. Then after that, they're saying you need to get to where you got a week's worth of supplies, 2 weeks worth of supplies, because if something happens in your area, we're not going to be there overnight. And do people listen? Nope.
Nope.
That's one reason I like coming to events like yours, because you run into people who, if they're not already there on the way, they're interested in getting there. And those are the people that are interested and want to be helped and want to help others. That's who I like dealing with.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the people that are going to take action and actually do something. That I've talked to so many people and wasted my breath. People ask me questions, and I look at them and I'm telling them something, and I'm like, I'm wasting my time talking to you because you're not going to implement anything I tell you.
Yeah.
And I'm not telling them to go buy 15 Daniel Defense guns and 10,000 rounds of ammo and a new freeze dryer and a new chamber sealer, and then go get 100 head of cows. I'm like, go to freaking Kroger and buy some shelf stable food. But they're just like, yeah. So
yeah, and you can get a case of beans for a relatively decent price. Get that stuff stored up so you have something. And if you do that, make sure you've got a manual can opener too, or know how to do it if you don't, because like I say, there's a lot of the small things that people don't think about and they forget. And hopefully we're going to be able to make them think about it. I never do any kind of a class where I expect to teach everybody everything they need to know. I teach them a little bit, but hope my big goal is provoke thought, make people think about what they can do to improve their situation.
Yeah, get their wheels turning.
And that could really be that you go out and buy a book that teaches you how to forage or how to identify edible plants. I mean, there's so many different things that we all need to do, but sometimes it can be overwhelming. So maybe that's where you start. You go buy a book that teaches you how to eat, find edible plants out in the outside or whatever. And the people that, they'll buy the emergency like seed thing and then put it up, and they've never grown a garden. That absolutely cracks me up. And the funny thing is, so I mean, I've tried various gardens over the years. Randy and I have been married for 30 years, and I guess I've probably been successful at gardening maybe, I don't know, half a dozen times over that 30 years. But 3 years ago, when we bought our farm and I started planting a garden, I mean, over the last 3 years, I've had the most success that I've ever had gardening. But I'll tell you why it is. It's because my attitude about it changed. Before, it wasn't, I could go to the store and buy food and it wasn't a big deal. And I can still do that. But now I have this attitude of failure is not an option. I'm going to make mistakes. I'm going to have things happen. Everything's a learning experience. Okay, tomatoes didn't work. What am I going to do next year? And I'm just going to try it again and try it again. And I guess I'm just not giving up. And my whole attitude about it has changed. People who think that they're going to buy a package of seeds that they put up and for the time when they got to go plant the stuff, they're going to be sorely hurting because they're not going to have any food. It just doesn't work that way.
And if in this class I touch on a little bit if I have time, but when it comes to the whole gardening thing, I run into so many people, run into tons over the years, said, we got a little garden, but if anything ever happens, I will kick the garden into high and we'll be able to grow enough to live pretty good. So, okay, how you going to do that? Well, we'll expand in the yard. You ever try growing anything in your yard? You know what that plot of ground there is good for? Because not every piece of ground is good for growing everything. And as people start experimenting a little more and learn that, And another big thing is they'll buy one of those little cans, one of those little seed vaults, and these folks that think that's going to help them have no idea how much food they're going to get out of one of those little envelopes of seeds inside that thing. Because they're, like you say, Shelley, they're going to end up starving, because even if they do have a good year, it's not going to go that far. And people can't think, if you're hungry and you're dependent on that, you're not going to wait till April or May to plant. You need to figure out a way to extend your growing seasons.
Right.
Don't have a greenhouse or anything, use a low tunnel, something like that. Find out what plants are very cold weather tolerant. We've got, and here we are up in Ohio, we're probably some of the only ones in the county that have collard greens in the garden. But I am so blessed, because I got myself a Yankee girl that fixes some of the best collard greens I have ever had. But we've got collard greens in the garden up here in Ohio, and they were just covered with a little bit of plastic. And we've got a couple plants that they're waiting for a little sun, and we're going to be eating some collard greens. Know what you can grow stuff that you're going to be able to store through the winter, at least part way through the winter. When I started getting into all this, I figured out, you've got things like squash and rutabaga and turnips and stuff that are going to be good and you're going to be able to store for a while. And we never had that growing up. And I didn't figure it out till a couple years ago. My dad would never allow a rutabaga, a turnip, or a parsnip in the house. He grew up during the Depression era. That's something that they could grow easily, have a lot of, and store. They ate a lot of it back then.
Yeah.
So he didn't want it, but there was a reason they had it back then. They could grow a lot. They could keep the family going on it. Search out things like that and be ready, have a good supply of the seeds, and know if your ground is going to grow it good. Know what you're going to have to do to get it going, because that's great. You can grow a lot of stuff in a small space with some of these things.
Yeah. That, and then, the people will say, yeah, like you said, Jeff, well, I'm just going to expand the garden out into the yard. It takes time to develop soil. I mean, yeah, that ground might grow some good looking fescue that you cut, every week, but it might just be total crap for growing any kind of vegetables. And it takes time to do that. I've kind of switched from a lot of annual stuff to more perennial. I mean, we've got a massive food forest out there that you can kind of put that thing on autopilot almost and put very little work in it. But what I did, Shelley gave me some tromboncino. Did I say it right, Shelley?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Squash seeds. And those things, they didn't do near as good as Shelley's. But, I mean, we had tromboncino squash, and we just planted them in between stuff where everything hadn't matured in there. And I'm like, I've got room. There's good soil down there. I stuck those seeds in. There was squash growing everywhere. My tobacco didn't do worth a crap, but I mean, we had strawberries galore. I had strawberries up until like 2 or 3 weeks before Halloween. I was still picking strawberries out of there.
Expand the way that you're going to grow that stuff. And like we've been talking about, know what's going to grow there. Whether you have to do some raised beds, I've seen some good things on YouTube. People are improvising, raising beds, and people got to be aware of that stuff and have it in the back of their mind. Where can they get the supplies to do that? Is there anything laying around? Another thing that we're trying to get into here, because this is our first year in the new place, is hugel mounds. And that's stuff that came over from the old country. And dig a ditch, and you got your decaying logs in there. Then go ahead and put wood shavings and wood chips and compost and dirt on top of it. And you can get some stuff going in there that you're not going to have to worry about watering it. So that's ideal. And when things go bad, there's just so many different things that people really need to broaden their mindset when it comes to this and see what's useful for them.
Yeah. And
like it's remarkable how well those mounds hold water. It's just, it's really ideal when you have, you don't have a lot of rainfall in your area and stuff.
And then while the logs are decaying, they're producing nitrogen. So, it's a win-win situation.
Yeah. And once you get, the hardest part about the food forest is getting the thing in, getting all your plants in, getting them established, because I literally put very little work into my food forest now. I mean, it's
Mhm.
going to be. We still got to fill in on the new section. What we did this fall, I've got to fill in with some other plants, but we'll do that in the springtime. Fill in, and then the thing's kind of on autopilot. I go down there and pick strawberries when I want to, and hopefully we'll start getting some more fruit off the trees and everything. But yeah, it's great. It's a low maintenance deal for sure.
And then, you know, another thing that, of course, I love it. A lot of people don't like it, but if you get some asparagus going, you know, how
I have
great is that?
asparagus.
How great is that when you're in an emergency situation and you're down? Man, that stuff's going to come up on its own. You just go harvest it. If you've had it going for at least a couple of years, you're going to get a lot of production out of it and very little work. So that's something that's really I watch out for. What can I grow that I'm going to have to put very little work into? Just because if you're having to cut firewood, provide security, do all kinds of other stuff, you may not have time for things like that.
And what are those stupid things that you grew, Shelly? The
My Jerusalem artichokes.
I was going
Yeah.
to mention them.
Yeah, I grew those this year, and they got, no joke, they got like 10 to 12 feet tall. And all of everything that's green, including the flower, is you know, like I can feed it to my chickens and my pigs. The root, which makes a tuber that kind of looks like turmeric or ginger or whatever. It kind of tastes, we sliced one up and deep fried it. It kind of tastes like potato, but sometimes people have problems digesting them. They're kind of they make you kind of gassy, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't bother us, but you can feed those to your livestock, or you can eat them. You can leave them in the ground and they'll just grow more the next year. They're very prolific. A lot of people call them invasive, but everything about the plant is edible and great for your livestock. So this year I was actually looking for things. That's why I started growing tromboncinos and the Jerusalem artichokes. We did pumpkins. I was looking for things that I could grow in abundance that I could feed my livestock or feed my pigs with, in case, you know, in case it got to where I couldn't get feed or whatever. And that's what we want to till up part of our pasture out here and grow a big pumpkin patch next year. So, you know, that will cut back on some of that cost, but that's something that you need to think about. If you've got pigs and chickens, which chickens you can, I mean, they can pretty much forage for themselves, even if you don't have feed. But pigs, you need to, you know, figure out what you're going to do with them. And if you're not growing stuff to feed them, then you're going to have a problem, you know?
And the same, if you have dogs that you're planning on using as part of your defense, you need to make sure that you're going to have supplies to keep them going. Because we have one of the dogs we have, that dog's got one of the farthest ranges I've ever seen. He will see across the pasture, across the road. He sees something moving there when he's in our living room. He's coming to and he's watching it. So, you know, if you have a canine you can use, or just a little yappy dog that's going to alert you if somebody's walking down the gravel in the driveway. You know, you definitely want to incorporate those and make sure you can care for them.
Yep. My Jerusalem artichokes didn't do anything. You gave me the
grew
bad
like
ones.
crazy.
You gave me all the ones. You gave me all the junky ones, I think.
I don't think I gave you any. You got them from that when they did that food forest thing and they put some in.
Oh yeah.
Like I gave some to Grumpy Acres, but I don't think I gave any to you.
That's right. Let's not mention who gave me those. They get a bad name out here now. So, hey, Chuck showed up.
Hey, Chuck.
So, but yeah, I mean, growing your perennials is, in my opinion, the way to go on it. And then also, Jeff, talking about your dogs and stuff like that. I want to get into raising rabbits just to feed the dogs. Is what I want to do. That and for their poop and to feed the dogs.
That's what I was gonna say, because well, I mean, if you have 3 does and a buck, you can raise as much meat in a year's time as what you get from a cow, like slaughtering a beef. You can get that much meat. So, I mean, and if you're just going to use it to feed your animals, that's fine too, but you can feed yourself with it as well. they're very, I mean, they reproduce like crazy. Like you can have babies every month.
Oh yeah.
All right. Well, we're coming up on an hour. Let's run over Jeff. Where can everybody here? Let's see what Chuck was on another live. Chuck was cheating on us.
See how you are, man.
Yeah. We're going to scold him. But it was I will admit, I was supposed to schedule a live for 6 p.m. instead of 7. So I take all the blame for that. See, Shelly, I owned up.
Yeah, I was on here at 6 and I was like, where are you? He goes, it's not till 7. And I was like, what?
But I made a killer thumbnail though.
You did.
So
That's what's important.
I'm getting to be good at thumbnails. And while we're talking about that, everybody needs to go watch my stinking video that bombed on my chamber sealer. It's only got 55 views. And my feelings are super hurt about that.
You don't have to get over yourself, dude.
I'll just make another better one. So, but
if at first you don't succeed, try again.
Oh, I'll keep trying. It doesn't matter. But we'll kind of start closing out. Jeff, where can everybody find you at?
That's got a website that's theeverydayprepper.com. Got some information on there. They can always reach out to me there and hit me with my email, jeff@theeverydayprepper.com. And, you know, I don't care if you didn't buy anything from me. If I can help anybody, if you think I might be able to help you or help you find something, some kind of equipment or some kind of supplies, or you just want an old guy's opinion on something, just reach out to me. I'm always happy to help folks.
And you'll have a vendor booth there selling all kinds of awesome stuff. I mean, you had one of the coolest booths and the biggest array of stuff. I mean,
well, thank you.
I think
he has some neat stuff.
Yeah, well, I mean, and it wasn't niche down into one thing that you had. I mean, you had a huge assortment of all kinds of different stuff, and that's one of the cool things I liked about it.
Well, my goal is too. I think I had a lot of stuff there that you're not going to find in other booths. Yeah. You're not going to find other folks carrying, and that's what I try to do. I try to find those things that you're not going to see everybody handling, like the old oil lamps. Got some great oil lamps coming back with this year, and a lot of these things, you know, I get them in auctions and stuff like that, estate sales, clean them up, fix them up, do what you got to do, and then get them ready to go. And people don't, you know, there's a lot of things they don't think about. Light, those old oil lamps, people use them for a lot of years. They do a great job. If you get a few of them in a room running, it's actually going to provide a little heat too if you need it. So things like that are just great. And I like you see some people are buying an oil lamp to have an oil lamp. Some people will see these things and you can just see their joy in their eyes because it takes them back. They remember the one grandma had or whatever. And that's a lot of fun. And like hearing the stories about oil lamps in their lives, that's great too.
That and the older oil lamps are so much better than the new crap that you can buy. I mean, those new ones, I've got a couple of those new ones and they're absolute junk. I mean, the metal on those things is like aluminum foil. It's so stinking thin. It's crazy.
Yeah. And you look at the glass is thin. I've seen some old oil lamps. You drop them and they just keep on going. They're really heavy made. They're well made. The old burners, man, you can't beat them. I always try to save them and clean them up because in order to get a burner of that quality nowadays, you're going to end up spending $25 or $30.
Yeah.
And that's more than I sell the oil lamps for.
I know around here it's hard. Around here, it's hard to find lamp oil. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, if you're out and you see that, you should pick up a few bottles of it, you know, and then get you an oil lamp. But where I live, it's hard. Like they don't sell it at Walmart. You used to be able to buy it at Walmart. They had like oil lamps there. They don't have any of that stuff now.
Well, and then a lot of that stuff you find in stores like that, you're not going to want to use that in your lamps anyway. And that's people stop by the booth. I'll tell you where I recommend people buy it from. There's 2 retailers that sell quality stuff. And I always tell them, you know, this is where you need to go get your lamp oil. This is what you need to get.
I've been getting it from Ace Hardware. Is their stuff good or no?
I don't know. Well, I always tell people to get either the Aladdin lamp oil or a product called Clean with a K,
Yeah, I've
because
seen that.
that's good, high quality. Don't use the stuff with dyes in it. I just cleaned up an oil lamp I got. It was the worst case I have ever seen. Somebody had red dyed oil in there, and man, that thing was the biggest mess. It took me, generally, I don't like to have to spend more than 5 or 10 minutes on a lamp to get it ready to go out the door. I start losing money if I spend too much time. But this one was a challenge, and it took me a while. And people want to know how to clean up those old lamps so they can do it themselves. I'm more than happy to talk to them about it and share what I've learned, and so they can go out and find their own good deals in a yard sale or something and clean it up.
Yeah, and I'll tell you a good tip on the lamp oil. That crap that they put it in, those stupid plastic containers, do not store it in there, because after a while, once you pick it up, it gets brittle and they'll actually start leaking if they don't just crack altogether. I took all mine and bought brand new plastic gas cans and took and emptied all that into the small little 1 gallon gas cans and made sure to label it what it was and everything, because that's what I keep it in now, because I actually had a bottle go brittle and leak everywhere.
Man.
Wow.
A lot of people aren't aware either. That lamp oil is probably going to be, if it's a quality lamp oil, it'll be good for maybe 5 to 7 years. And then you need to think about changing out, getting some fresh, but don't throw the old stuff away. Mix it half and half with the new oil, and you're going to be good to go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah. And my dad was down. I had a couple of those cans in the basement stored away with some of my lamps. My dad came in and he goes, "What the hell do you have gas in your basement for?" I was like, "It's not gas, it's lamp oil." He goes, "You got gas in your basement?" I was like, "Dad, relax. There's not gas in the basement. It's lamp oil." So he threw a fit on that deal.
And in a pinch, you could use about anything else. And I've heard people that like to use olive oil in it, whatever. If you find that stuff and you can't find anything else, use that. One woman was telling me how she was using rendered fat in there. And
I've heard that too.
How'd that smell? She said, I wouldn't want to do that in the house unless I didn't have anything else. In an emergency, it'd probably do, but said it worked.
I tried one of the little makeshift that you make olive oil lamps in a jar.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It did pretty decent. It didn't put out a whole lot of light, but it's got enough light. It's better than lighting a match and walking around with a match or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it was not near as good as one of the old oil lamps for sure. So,
well, they can come by and see me and we'll get them fixed up.
Good deal.
Good deal.
All right. Shelly, where can everybody find you?
You can find me on YouTube. We're Two Old Crows Homestead on YouTube. We also have a website, Two Old Crows Homestead, where I sell my soap. I've been making soap tonight, so hopefully I'll be back up in stock. I've been sold out, which is a good problem to have, but
that's a good thing.
Yeah, so I was making soap tonight before the video, so come see me at the festival. I'll have my soap there. You can see me at twooldcrowshomestead.com and get it there too.
All right. Guys, y'all can find me at KentuckySustainableLiving.com. That's our website for the festival. You can find me on YouTube, same thing. But I appreciate everybody being here tonight. Go by, check out the website. If y'all are planning on coming, we'd appreciate it if you bought tickets beforehand. That just helps us plan for everything and put on a better show if we know exactly how many people are going to come. And we will be back next Thursday at 6, if Shelly reminds me to set the right time. And we're going to have Brian and Susan with S&B Homestead Radio to talk about their radio workshop that we're doing. So, guys, I appreciate it. We will see y'all next week.